Hi everyone, it's Chenzo from Reality Art Pod. I know I said in my last video I was done with my Big Brother 25 coverage, but I'm back for one more. I started this season with an initial player ranking, then I did rankings all season, so it does make sense to do a postseason ranking. So here I'll rank the 17 players who played Big Brother 25 based solely on how well they played in the game. I'll also include a link in the description of this video to my Big Brother 25 playlist, so if you want to watch from the beginning all my recaps and rankings, go nuts and do that. So what do you say we just start off on a sour note? At number 17, I have to put Luke. First of all, obviously this guy can choke. In my initial first impression rankings, I had him rated 14 out of 16. I'm gonna keep saying out of 16 because at the time that I did those initial rankings, Suri wasn't on the cast yet, but he ends up making a legacy for himself as a racist dumbass. Before he was ejected from the game, he was being a huge floater in the house, really just not talking to anyone and keeping to himself. However, I do feel like he would have gotten really far in this season, but been terrible TV. Honestly, unfortunately, probably would have been the fourth member of the Mafia, and we didn't have to see it. At number 16 here, I have Riley, who initially was 16 out of 16. I described her intro videos as lost in the sauce. She ends up winning the first HOH, which could put her in a place to really solidify some really strong alliances. She forms the family style alliance, which should have been really good for her. Everyone else in that alliance ended up doing really well in the game, but she just ends up taking the entire fall for creating this alliance. In her HOH, I don't know how she made so many enemies because she didn't even have to nominate anybody. She had to save 2 people. And the last day or 2 of her HOH reign, she was in shambles. To make matters worse, the one person who really wanted her out of the house, Hisam, ends up winning the next HOH. Hisam really had it out for Riley, and it really was her fault because she didn't make much of an effort with Hisam. She had around 9 days from her game tanking to her eviction to turn things around and really strategize, and her situation wasn't that bad. She had time to put the target on someone else, but her strategy for those 9 days just ends up being victim noises, saying that she's the victim of the house divide and she's taking all the blame for this alliance that just happened because they liked each other. Then moving on to playing the victim about Hisam's speech, which did get sympathy and I guess hurt Hisam's game, but Hisam was the HOH who was safe. I had really low hopes for Riley and she ended up delivering me exactly what I thought I was going to get. Would I like to see her again on another show? Hell no. I feel like it's inevitable that she'll be on the challenge. I'm good. At number 15, I have Red, who I originally put as 7th, which now in retrospect is kind of insane. Hear me out though, Red really should have done better if he never met Cameron. Red starts off in the Professor's Alliance, in the majority that's running the game. How he got into this majority, I have no idea, but I think that Suri brought Red in. I think that Suri really liked Red, and Red could have just rode with this alliance, secretly had a relationship with Cam. He was in a place where once those 2 alliances started taking shots at each other, he would have been safe for a long time, probably past 7th place. But at some point, he becomes fixated on getting Cameron into the Professor's Alliance, and Suri and the ladies just decide one day they don't want to work with Red anymore. Then Red and Cameron are completely isolated. Cameron is Red's only friend, and Red believes a lie that Cameron's out to get him, and he just believes a big lie and ends up breaking up with his friend. And it's so bad and so dumb, and it's beyond terrible gameplay. It's just dumb. It's just being dumb. But overall, I didn't find Red to be as annoying and insufferable as I thought he would be. When he was in the diary room, he was all blang blang and a popcorn fart. But on the live feeds, he was just a completely regular guy. This is so random. On the live feeds, he was just like a sweet, sensitive guy who loved to bake. He baked all the time. And the show did really nothing with Red on the televised show. You just have this really silly guy in the house wearing overalls and nothing else, but never tell his story or share his point of view. It just makes no sense. I fully expect us to never see Red again on TV. But I do hope that Red and Cameron make up. At number 14 here, I have Blue. I originally had Blue ranked as 15 out of 16, mostly because there was no substance in her preseason interviews. It was a lot of the kitty kitty purr, rock-a-ta-ta-ta-ta, and then that's kind of what we got. It's really obvious that Blue hasn't watched much of the show and was overall just there to promote herself. Early in the game, she's roped into the family style alliance. She also has close relationships with Hisam and Izzy. So if Blue were a good player, all these relationships would have mattered. But instead, she ends up getting completely distracted by her showmance with Jared, being such an information leak for really no reason. Her not being able to keep anything from Jared for the first half of the game was really stifling a lot of the fun gameplay. So she was just ruining the game for her allies. For example, Jag, who was telling her pretty much all of his game, and because she was running his whole game back to the rest of the house, his game sucked and he didn't realize what he was doing wrong until America told him he couldn't tell Blue anything. So around the middle of the game, Blue leaves the family style side of the house and joins up with the Suri and Jared side of the house, and this is when the Suri and Jared side of the house is falling apart. So it just blew my mind in live time how someone who had all the information in the game, even knew about Suri and Jared's secret, just fumbled the bag at every opportunity. She could have been an iconic player, but ends up being just a really terrible player. With that said, on a personal level, I did leave off with a really positive opinion of Blue. I really liked the kitty kitty purr of it all. I'd like to see her again on the challenge. I think that she'd be really good on that show. I just just hope that she develops some kind of competitive spirit. At number 13, I have Kirsten, who I originally put in 6th in my initial rankings. I had a great first impression of Kirsten. I think that she's smart, well-spoken. I could tell that she hadn't watched a lot of Big Brother though. I really hated the premiere night twist. The fact that Kirsten was nominated because of a sit-up competition on the first night, it just seems wrong. Not to be a revisionist, but if that twist didn't happen and Riley won HOH, I really don't think that Kirsten would have been nominated. So she ends up one of the 4 initial nominees who everyone starts looking at those 4 people under a microscope. So Kirsten doesn't really know the game, is being looked at under a microscope. I think if she had time to actually learn how to play and feel things out, she could have been better. She ends up making minor rookie mistakes that anyone who hasn't watched every season of the show would make. And she ends up on the block at the end of the first week against Felicia, which is so unfortunate because nobody was ever going to vote out Felicia the first week. But I'll give Kirsten credit because she fought and fought and fought the whole week, and she was presenting some really good rational arguments. But overall, because she was up against Felicia, nobody would ever really hear her out. And I have a lot of respect for that. Also, I don't agree that this eviction should have ever happened. The eviction should have been canceled, Kirsten should have been saved, and had she been saved, everyone would have been fighting for her loyalty the following week. So justice for Kirsten. CBS, you suck. I'd like to see Kirsten again in any capacity on any show, really. It seems like she'd be down. At number 12, I have Jared, who was originally 13 out of 16. My opinion of Jared before Cirie was going to be joining him in the house, where I feel like he had big shoes to fill. He would probably feel a lot of pressure being in Cirie's shadow. Cirie being on the show probably makes that even worse because he's seeing in live time his mom being such a better player than him. Jared had so much going for him. His mom is Cirie. She's in the house. She's helping him. He's in the middle getting information from the other side to bring to Cirie. The problem with this situation is that he's a terrible player. It's hard to even remember that he won 2 HOHs. The one time he was HOH, he was trying to backdoor America, accusing her of throwing challenges when she just sucked at challenges, and it just came across making him look so bad. And overall, throughout his stay in the house, he just continuously does things to make himself look bad, and really being more of a detriment to Cirie than a help. He ends up telling his big secret to Blue, even though she ends up keeping the secret and not telling anyone. Why would you tell her that? It is so stupid. I feel like he was good at some of the competitions, but overall, I'm just left feeling like he's a really awful player at Big Brother. But I really would love to see Blue, Jared, and Kirsten on the challenge all together, especially after all of the postseason Twitter drama. I love messy drama. Give it to me. Yum, yum, yum. At number 11, I'm going to put Izzy, who I originally had as 9th. I feel like the best part of Izzy's game was that she accidentally blackmailed Jared and Cirie. She had that information against them, which she really should have seen as a checked box. Like, okay, Jared and Cirie cannot ever come after me. Let me make sure I have good relationships with everyone else. A good player in that situation would identify, I have this piece of information that I can use at any point in time, but it was pretty clear that Izzy would not ever use that information to forward her game. She was more interested in being Cirie's friend after the show than playing her own game, which I have to take into account and obviously is bad if you're doing a player ranking. It even got to the point where she was saying things like she'd prefer to be voted out over Cirie. Izzy ends up being there on the show for a good amount of time, but doesn't win anything or make any important game moves. In the end, I don't really see Izzy coming back for another TV show unless maybe if they did an early boot season of Big Brother, which I don't think would happen. But she really did provide a lot of really great chaos in the house, gave us some really good memes on Twitter, and when she left, a lot of the entertainment left with her. In 10th, I have Hisam, who was 8th in my initial rankings. My initial impression was that Hisam is smart and he's not trying to hide how smart he is. That shines through here. He really should have downplayed his abilities. He ends up winning 2 vetoes and an HOH in the first 3 weeks, really just scaring the pants off everybody, especially after coming off last season where Michael won all those competitions. So they're all terrified of Hisam, and the whole house decides to band together to get Hisam out. But Hisam really shouldn't have been evicted here. He's evicted on Felicia's HOH, which actually is a terrible idea for her, given that Hisam was one of the strongest people in the Professor's Alliance and probably the only person who stood a chance against Cameron and Jag in competitions. Had they had some more patience and decided not to send Hisam home there, Hisam probably does still go home a couple of weeks later, but I think that the game would have had a little bit more intrigue had he lasted a little bit longer. I really liked what Hisam brought to the game. He reminded me a lot of old school Big Brother players, and I'd actually really like to see him play again. I feel like he hasn't really lived up to his full potential. Also, he's been so messy on social media since he's been evicted. That's on entertainment. The next one hurts. At number 9, I have Mimi, who was first in my initial rankings. I was so excited for what Mimi was going to bring to the game. I thought she was going to run the game, and the whole time she was on, I was like, okay, Mimi, she's flying under the radar. She's playing the best game in the house. In every ranking, she was in my top 3. Come on, Mimi. She's the little engine that could. She's queen of doing nothing. Flying under the radar. Mother is mothering. Just wait till she starts playing, y'all. Then she gets nominated and she gets evicted. She literally did nothing. I am in shock. It blows my mind. I would even put her lower on this list, but I still feel like for a lot of the game, doing nothing was the right idea. The problem is that while she was laying low, she really wasn't building strong relationships chance with anyone but Felicia. Someone who, if she's nominated next to Felicia, she always goes home. And then she did. I would love to see Mimi get a second chance at Big Brother, but I cannot go through this again. If I want to get nothing, I could take a nice deep breath. At number 8, I have FBJ herself, Bowie Jane, who I originally had ranked 11th. I think Bowie was the biggest casting dud on this cast. On every season there's one. It's someone who's such a terrible player that you absolutely know the entire time they're going to be a finalist. And I want to encourage the casting team for this show. It is a 100-day show. If you're going to have someone who sucks so badly that they're going to be there for 100 days, they better be the most hilarious, entertaining, captivating person I've ever seen on TV. And Bowie Jane was nothing of the sort. She was not fit to wear those shoes. I always knew she was going to suck, but she did mention that she'd watched Big Brother before. I got the feeling that she'd watched recent seasons of Big Brother Australia. And on Big Brother Australia, they play a similar game to Big Brother USA, except their country votes on the final 3 who should be the winner. And I really feel like public opinion really affected the way that she behaved in the house, where her each and every move seemed to be seeking some kind of validation from the viewing public, and the whole house was kind of onto it. And I feel like that, and the fact that they all knew that she was lying about her age, just really made her seem like not a real person to the people in the house. I feel like they felt like they were living with a cartoon character. The reason I don't have her lower in this list is I feel like she had a lot of really good instincts in the game, where a lot of the people lower on this list made really bad decisions. I feel like Bowie overall was someone who I did see had common sense, and she showed that she was capable of having independent thought. For example, the fact that she ended up backdooring Cameron because it really was in everyone's best interest shows that she's not just blindly loyal, which a lot of floaters would be. So I wouldn't really call Bowie Jane a floater, which defies my expectations of her, but I never, ever want to or see any reason why we should have Bowie Jane on our TVs again. In 7th, I have Cameron, who I originally ranked as 10th. My first impression were that he's just such an emotional guy. That I feel like was going to be his biggest weakness coming into this. And really, that was kind of true. There was the weird situation with Riley where he was saying like she was like his daughter, but also weirdly flirting with her and making America and other people feel uncomfortable. I just feel like he made people uncomfortable with his general aura. It's not very often that people just want someone out so badly because they're annoyed by them and hate living with them, but that was a big part of why a lot of people wanted Cameron out in the early half of the game. Then he actually ends up being evicted in 11th place, wins his spot back, ends up surviving a few more weeks. I'm not that impressed by Cameron. Like, he's 7th here, but he's one spot above Bowie Jane. Overall, I had him ranked dead last or second to last in my rankings almost every week. So overall, I think he's a terrible player, but he's really good at the competitions, and specifically he's very good under pressure. I think he's most likely to be the person that's on reindeer games. I think he has a good chance to win the reindeer games. I hate to say it, but I wouldn't mind seeing Cameron on another season of Big Brother or on the challenge. He does have a certain je ne sais quoi about him. Moving on, in 6th, I have Corey, who I originally put 4th. I had and still have a lot of faith in Corey as a strategic mind. Unfortunately, I don't feel like this cast was a good cast for Corey really to thrive. Specifically, Cerie's presence there was always like a brick wall that Corey kept running into, where he knew how great she was, he knew how great she was. Overall, he just wasn't ever in a place where he had the right alliances or the right footing to really make a run at the win. I also feel like it doesn't help being a younger person, both the way that you're being seen when you're trying to initiate an idea, and also I think if Corey played Big Brother again or for the first time at an older age, he would have better results. I'm an AmeriCorey stan. I feel like he always felt like the relationship with America was going to put a target on them. In the end, I don't think their relationship played too much into his downfall. I actually think that he would have been evicted earlier if America wasn't there. Firstly, because she was a great loyal ally for him, and secondly, because the other house guests a lot of the time thought they were distracted with each other. I wouldn't mind seeing Corey again on Big Brother. I don't really need it. I think I would prefer to see Corey on The Amazing Race with his brother or with America. I do think if that happens, Corey wins Amazing Race. In 5th, I have Felicia, who I originally ranked as 5th. So it's like I said earlier with Bowie, if you're going to have someone who's guaranteed going to get far, have them be a very funny, interesting person. Well, now I realize Felicia is that. She's bright, funny, charismatic, smart. I always expected Felicia to get far, and I knew even from my first impression that she was going to struggle with the endgame competitions. So Felicia coming in 5th isn't really a knock on herself, because if the competitions were more equitable, as we all talk about, but there was no way that these people were letting Felicia get to the final 2 chairs, because if Felicia's in the final 2 against anyone except Cirie, she wins automatically. She's so well spoken, she's so well liked, it's just such a great story. One thing I love about Felicia is that she was never afraid to play the game. She was very observant in the beginning of the game, her observations about the Handful Alliance coming together are a big reason why the Professor's Alliance came together to counter that. Obviously, she ends up winning HOH and evicting Heisem, which is not great, but not 100% her idea. That was kind of everyone in the house, but it really wasn't in her best interest. But she was one of only 3 female HOHs this season, and on that HOH nominated Jag and Cameron and backdoored Heisem, which is kind of awesome and really badass on paper at least. She was even trying to the bitter end, throwing Suri under the bus. Everyone had a problem with Felicia throwing Suri under the bus, but they were in a situation where it was one or the other. Felicia was doing what she needed to do to survive, and I give her credit for that. I would love to see Felicia and her husband on The Amazing Race. Give it to me right now. In 4th place, I have Matt, who I originally ranked 12th out of 16. I didn't feel good about him as a winner contender originally. He didn't really seem to care that much in the beginning. He was always in a good place in the game, but he wasn't really doing anything to actively put himself in that good place. Everyone in the house just liked him because he was a pretty likable guy. So he makes it through the first few weeks. Suri takes an interest in Matt, but he doesn't actually do anything to get Suri to like him. So you can't really give him credit for that relationship. He ends up winning the power. He tells Suri about the power, but this is also a period in time where Suri knows everything in the house and everyone is telling Suri their secrets. I wouldn't really consider telling Suri information at that point a game move. He saves Jag, which ends up being his biggest move in the game, and that decision to save Jag really paid off for him because Jag really dragged Matt through the second half of this game. Something that really frustrated me about Matt was he won an endgame veto and had a diary room where he said, "I was thinking of evicting Jag, but now that I won a veto, I feel like my resume looks good enough, so I don't need to do that anymore." That just irked me. I feel like he came across as so complacent in that moment, and I still feel like he was the most likely winner, so I felt really gross about that. And he ends up coming into the final 2 speeches completely not prepared. He didn't even have an answer prepared to the question, what was your biggest move in the game? So I left off feeling really glad that the jury didn't award him with the money, because I feel like he didn't have good work ethic in the Big Brother house. I do like his message and what he stands for, and I wouldn't mind seeing him on the challenge. I actually think that's pretty much going to be a definite if he wants to do it. At number 3, I have America, who was actually 3rd in my original rankings. Coming into the game, America said she was going to lay low, play the kitchen strategy, flirt a little bit. It really seemed like she modeled her game after the winning games of previous female winners. I like that she stuck to that. The first week or 2, she was almost invisible on the live feeds. I think she saw that if she did too much, she would be targeted earlier on. So she kept quiet, but it did get to a point where the Suri Alliance was building a wall that I really couldn't imagine Corey and America ever bursting through. There was a point, I think the 3rd week or the 4th week, where I told myself, I really like America, but she's really effed in this game. But anytime her back was against the wall, America was not afraid to fight for her game. I was glued to the feeds, and I fully give America credit for the Izzy eviction. Corey said he wasn't sure it could happen. America started putting in the work. She went to Cameron, and she told Cameron everyone's game. Cameron did not want to believe her. She went to Jag, and she told Jag that Blue was spilling his information. America single-handedly wrecked the game that week, and she got no credit for it on the show, and she never quit. She never stopped trying, and you could tell she genuinely cared a lot about this. So I'm putting her here in 3rd place because I actually feel like she executed the biggest move of the season, and she executed that move without having any power. She woke up from a nap at like 6 p.m. on that day, and she went to Corey and she said, "I'm about to play this game so hard." I would love to see America back on TV. I think she would be terrible at the challenge. I need to see America back on Big Brother. At number 2, I'm gonna put the winner of this season, Jag. Jag was actually my number 2 pick in my original rankings. I said in my first impressions that I felt like Jag had the riz on the game. Now, I don't really think I feel like Jag has the riz on the game. There were a lot of periods where he really didn't have the riz on the game, specifically the first 2 weeks where Blue was really tanking his game, sharing all of his information. Once America told Jag that Blue was the one spilling his information, he really found some people he could trust, getting closer to Matt and to Bowie and distancing himself from Blue. In that regard, he was pretty adaptable. If he didn't win all those competitions, he would have been out way sooner. There were plenty of people in the house who wanted to nominate Matt and Jag, with the target being Jag, but he did win all the competitions, which ended up keeping him safe, so I guess that method works too. I'm choosing not to knock or penalize someone for being evicted and then coming back into the game. For me, if somebody's evicted from the game and gets another chance to come back in, it shouldn't be held against them. It's not Jag's fault that he was evicted and saved. And I feel like if you're going to be evicted and then be saved, you should play the shit out of the game, and that's exactly what he did. So I'll put him here in 2nd, and I would love to see Jag back on TV. Kind of want to see him on The Amazing Race with his brother. And finally, onto my number 1, who wasn't on my original rankings, but would have been number 1. And that's going to be Suri. This really is based on how I feel she played the game this season. Suri was running the first half of the game. It's actually insane that they didn't vote out Suri pre-jury, especially given that there were a few people there who knew how good Suri was. Her reputation alone should have put a huge target on her, and it just didn't. And I give her credit for that because she was masterfully going through the first few weeks to the point that her, Felicia, and Izzy would get so bored with being on top that they would stir trouble up just because they could. And there were so many times that she would do things that were risky and we'd be so worried about her and she'd just clean it up. Even when Jared was evicted, Suri was in such a bad spot in the game and she managed to make it all the way to the final 5. A big rough spot is I think that Suri only did this show so that Jared could do the show. And it was very clear the whole time that Suri wanted Jared to do better than her and that she wanted this to be his experience. She even told Jared that she would go home instead of him, even though she had a better chance of winning than him. Once Jared and Izzy were evicted, Suri was really having a miserable time. So while I do think that Suri was the player of the season, I really don't think that she was enjoying herself for the second half of the game. So for me, the good work that she put in the times when she was most excited and motivated to be on Big Brother is what puts her here as number 1. And personally, I do love Suri. It was such a blessing to get to see her on the live feeds. I don't really think we'll see Suri again on TV, at least not for a long time. I really feel like she hated this, but I'd love to see it. I think CBS would ask Suri and Jared to do the Amazing Race, and maybe we get Suri for Survivor 50. So that's it, my final player rankings for Big Brother 25. I'll say it this time, and this time I mean it. My Big Brother 25 coverage has come to a close. The next time you hear me talking about Big Brother US is going to be the reindeer games, ho ho ho. So don't forget to subscribe because I'm about to make that a holly jolly good time. Until then, I hope you have a happy harvest. Bye.